Welcome to the Lloyd's Futureset Business Leaders Conversation. Today I'm joined by Reid, who until recently was the CEO of Mars, huge organisation that we all know so well. And we're going to talk about climate change and transition. What's really interesting talking to Grant is when you think of climate, the conversation about energy always feels more straightforward. The moment you drop into nature and biodiversity, it gets so much harder. And Grant, you chair the Agri task force. So give us a bit of an insight as to the work you're doing there.
Yeah, great. Well, so first of all, great to be here, John. Great to have a conversation with you. First of all, why the Ag Task Force? Maybe start there, which is 30% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions comes from agriculture. 50% of the habitable land is agriculture. Yeah. And probably more importantly, from a life and hope perspective, that 3/4 of the world's poorest people are going to be mostly impacted by agriculture and farming. That's the only livelihood they have. So it's a big challenge, first of all. The transition, as you rightly say, is a tough one because there's so many stakeholders in there. So first of all, what is regenerative agriculture? I mean, it's like going back to the indigenous soil, as Perry would say, which is we've been extracting out of agriculture for many years, and the soil's depleting. And we've got to get back to a situation where it's not an extractive, it's more circular. The soil quality is better, it's more resilient from a food supply chain perspective, and we're giving people an opportunity to have quality of life that they can't have if they continue along this extractive path.
But you've got such a complex set of stakeholders in there, haven't you? Yeah. Because nobody can do it by themselves. It can't just be the private sector, it can't just be business. It's got to involve government as well. So are those conversations landing?
Yeah, so it's a great point. So up until now, so the Ag Task Force did a deep study. We've only been in place for 2 years. Yeah. And we said, look, what's getting in the way? Regenerative agriculture at most worldwide is less than 15%.
Wow.
And it's expanding, even with all our work, at a glacial pace of less than 1 percentage point a year. So I'll be dead before we get to the critical point. So that we've got to accelerate it, or I'm never going to see it in my lifetime. So what we want to do is triple the penetration from about 15 to 45 by 2030.
Wow.
Now, that sounds like a long time.
It doesn't.
Good.
Doesn't.
Because it's only 5 harvests.
Right.
We're talking 5 harvests to get this done.
Right.
So it's really critical. So I would say it's in 3 waves. It's well known, really, what regenerative farming is about.
Sure.
By and large, there's some, arguments about definition, but broadly, let's not give up progress trying to define it exactly. Broadly, we know what it is. But what gets in the way, first, is there are no real agreed metrics. Right. How are we going to measure it? You get what you measure. How are we going to compensate farmers if you don't tell them what to measure? There are over 200 metrics out there. So first of all, let's get some common metrics. Second is, the farmers by and large are sensible business people. Yeah. They want to farm in a good way, but they just can't afford to make this transition. Yeah. They cannot do it. And if you look at time and profitability, there is a dip of about 3 years. And we talk a lot about, as you said, the energy transition. Yeah. The agricultural transition is even more complex, I think, as you rightly said. So what we're trying to do is get a group together, multi-stakeholders, to drive that change. And it comes in 3 waves, if you like. The first wave is the one that you always think about. Mars works with its supply chain vertically, and it can do so much by priming the pump and paying for change. Yes. Wave 2, which is phenomenal. A good example would be McCain working with McDonald's, growing potatoes and making French fries out of it, working together. So multiple companies working together. We've got lots of examples of that. Wave 3 is the breakthrough, and I'll give you credit. You've been a big part of the discussions on that at the events we've had. So thank you for your leadership, because it needs it. What we're really talking about is the breakthrough, is the blended finance approach with multi-stakeholders, public, private, and philanthropy all working together. Yeah. So we need insurance to make the risk attainable for the farmer. Yeah. If we do that, we can get banks providing better financing. If we do that, we can get asset managers investing capital in here. And then we can get government policy to pay for the metrics, outcomes on environment versus just yield. We can help with training. and we can use people like Raj of Rockefeller to help prime the pump to get us moving. So it's a very complex ecosystem.
It is.
And the only way I think we can get change is by uncommon collaboration, working together. And so it's been, I think, Lloyd's Insurance have been great, Lloyd's Bank, NatWest and others working together to make the change, and then we can push the government change as well. So that's the cunning plan. It's a complex plan, but a cunning one.
It is a complex plan. I mean, the discussions have been absolutely fascinating because, and I'm glad you dropped into finance and insurance a bit, because you're sat there with the farmer, and you're right, the farmer of course understands the opportunity, but there is this dip, isn't there?
Yes.
You've got to invest in slightly different equipment to get from A to B. Exactly. As you do that and you allow the land to recover, there is a loss of revenue for a period of time, and you would hope at the end of this journey the revenue comes back and actually goes up, but that's where the finance is needed, and I think that's where the insurance is needed to bridge the gap.
No, you've called it exactly right. So I mean, there's lots of different studies, but the farmer generally thinks there will be a dip, and in some cases there are. There's other data that says you can increase it right away, but I think we have to start with an assumption that somebody has to manage the financial risk.
Yeah.
Right? That's what we're trying to achieve. So we can say to the farmer, look, your yield may go up, it may go down, but either way, we're covered because we've changed the whole ecosystem compensation system, and everybody's carrying the load. Right now, in that dip, the farmer has to shoulder that load on his own. And I think what we're trying to achieve is bringing great companies like yours to say, hey, we can take a little bit of the load and create a new insurance scheme. A bank can take a little bit of the load and create a new banking scheme. And if we do that together, it will be much, much easier.
And presumably then we can add it all up because we'll have the risk frameworks, and that goes back to a conversation with government, because every government around the world is helping agriculture, isn't it, with some form of subsidy. And at least then we can show what the private sector's doing, what risk the farmer's taking, and legitimately say to government, this is the gap, and this is the gap you've got to step into.
Exactly. So I think you called it exactly right, which is, we know if we get this right, we can get $1.2 trillion in growth potentially out of this. So the growth will come. What we've got to do is to demonstrate that don't pay for the things which are extractive. Pay for the output of performance of using less blue water, sequestering carbon, creating biodiversity, all of those things. We've got 5, we've taken 200 metrics, we've distilled it down of what are the easiest to measure, what's the most credible, what's the simplest path to 5 key metrics. So it includes carbon sequestration, it's about water yield. So very, very simple. But then you can set up a system that can compensate the farmer for that. So then we can go to the government and say, not only should you change the policy, we've got probably 10 key policy ones, which I won't bore you with now, but the key ones are training, the compensation, using the same subsidies, but putting them into more powerful places, not incentivizing extraction and soil depletion, but incentivizing healthy, fertile, growing soil. And also there's another complication that not all farmers own the land.
True.
So how do you work with tenant farmers? Because the landowner may get the long-term benefit, so there has to be some equalization of that system. So it's about taking the whole ecosystem, making it fair, making it clear, and putting some money behind it.
That's good. So we're in Dubai today. We're at COP. Sustainable Markets Initiative has been at 3 COPs, hasn't it? Starting with Glasgow, and then there we were in Egypt here. How do you think things have progressed? Do you feel as if traction is actually being got as we go from one COP to another? What's your hopes for this COP?
So I would say it's it's a bit spread, right? So I think I have a lot of hope. I tend to be
an optimist.
But there's no doubt that we're going too slow. We're doing too little, too slowly. I think, so I'd say break it into different groups. I think we need the governments to really, when they make a commitment, commitments are easy. It's delivery and action that we need. So I don't really want to see any more commitments. I'd love to see delivery of the commitments already made and consequences if they're not done. And so I think we're making some progress on that, but not enough. From an SMI point of view, I think I'm feeling actually quite optimistic. Why is that? Because I think the convening power of His Majesty combined with his bias for action is instilling into the CEOs like yourself who really want to get things done. And I've been in so many conversations with you, you've said, yeah, that's interesting, but what are we going to do? And we need more of that conversation. And I've heard more of that at this COP, particularly from the collaboration of the cross-industry that we need. So, I was with Charlie of Lloyd's Bank yesterday, and Ron at Hanley of State Street and yourself, and everybody I talked to in the consumer companies are all saying, let's get it done. That's a breakthrough. This is a novel approach. I'm really proud that you're partnering us with it. If we can get it done, I think we can. We might not be able to change the world, but we can change our part of the world, and that will be a good start.
I think your summary is spot on. I mean, COP doesn't need more actions, does it? There's enough. And I like what you said about SMI, because it's CEO-led. It tends to be solution-oriented, doesn't it? Which is good news. Grant, thank you very much for talking to us today. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
Yeah, great. Thanks a lot, John.
Good to see you.
Yeah, take it.